I'd like to call this meeting to order. Today is Monday, October 6, 2014. We're meeting for the purposes of the regular meeting of the Elmhurst City Council. I would ask that you all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Spencer, I'd ask you to please call roll.
Gutenkopf.
Here.
Deuter.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
Leader absent. Kolumsky.
Here.
Graham.
Here.
York.
Here.
Levin.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Honquist.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
Wagner.
Here.
12 present, 1 absent.
12 present, 1 absent. We have a quorum. On to agenda item 3, and I'm going to meet Brian Burhager and a couple of folks from the Historical Museum over at the podium.
Thank you.
Okay. Recently, the American Association for State and Local History selected Elmhurst Historical Museum for a leadership award. And with us, we have Lance. Is Lance here? Lance is here. Judy Heffron, Nancy Himmis, and Brian Burhager. Brian's going to say a few words. But let me start with this award is for the Sandburg and Elmhurst exhibit that was opened November 13th and ran through April of this year. Lance Towser, the curator of exhibits at the museum, accepted the award 2 weeks ago at the annual meeting of this national organization. While Sandburg was a native son of Illinois, it was not until 1919 that he and his family moved to Elmhurst. They lived here for about 10 years. However, during his residency in Elmhurst, Sandburg wrote many of his most respected works. It was also from his home in Elmhurst that he traveled throughout the nation, making a name for himself as a lecturer, poet, and songster. The American Association for State and Local History, AASLH, is a national organization providing leadership and support to institutions and individuals involved with state and local history. With that, I'm going to congratulate Brian Burhager and turn it over to him.
Well, this Leadership in History Award from a national organization is confirmation of wonderful exhibit work being done by Lance and the entire team assembled for exhibits at the Historical Museum. Exhibits cut across all aspects of museum operations, so I'd like to recognize the museum staff here tonight. The mayor has introduced them, but it's their work that's reflected in the Sandburg exhibit and realized by the award won by the museum. Nancy Himmis is the museum's administrative assistant. Judy Heffron is our marketing and communications manager. And Lance Tauser, as was mentioned, is the museum's curator of exhibits. Lance deserves special recognition. Lance brings a great deal of design expertise to the exhibit program at the museum, as recognized by the award, and he deserves credit. His work has been a hit with visitors, and it continues to present the museum as a fun and enlightening place for visits. The Leadership in History Award is also especially noteworthy because it affirms a direction taken several years ago, coming off a new strategic plan at the Historical Museum, when we chose to invest greater resources in our exhibits program, to integrate multimedia throughout the exhibits, to integrate scholar-based content in those exhibits, and to feature Elmhurst topics that have broad appeal outside of the city limits as well as within the city limits of Elmhurst. And I think this Sandburg exhibit clearly hit the mark on all of those accounts. At the museum, we sometimes get focused on the daily details of our jobs, forgetting that an award like this from the American Association for State and Local History really starts with the city administration and with elected officials like yourselves. So your continued support for all of the museum's work and your trust is very, very much appreciated by all of us at the museum. I'd be remiss not to mention the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation and its board, because the foundation has stepped up to provide almost 2/3 of the funding necessary for the museum's annual exhibits program. These private dollars contributed to the success of the exhibit on Carl Sandburg as well. I know there are several board members here. Would you please stand? Kathy Jordan, President of the Board, Joyce Sloan, Ellen Braun, Cheryl Kopecki, and Kathy Siegert. Thank you. Finally, as I said earlier, the award is a symbol of the work by the staff, particularly Lance. So each of you should be pleased to know that your work is deemed worthy of recognition by colleagues in our museum profession. So congratulations to all of you.
Take it over here safely. Good? All right, congratulations again. Okay, always nice to recognize somebody's hard work. Appreciate all of that. Agenda item 4, written receipt of communications from the public. At this time, is there anybody who has any written communications they wish to submit? If so, please raise your hand. All right. Ms. Brenner has something. Please hand it to Clerk Spencer. Anybody else in the audience at this time who has any written communication they wish to submit? Seeing none, we'll move on to the public forum portion of our meeting. This is the portion of our meeting where you have an opportunity to address the council on any issue you may choose. We ask out of respect for the work that we're doing here today, and also out of respect for others who wish to speak, that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. If you get over your 3 minutes, I will give you a gentle reminder and ask you to wrap it up. When Clerk Spencer calls your name, I ask that you approach the microphone over here on my right and state your name, and the address, as I discussed last meeting, is optional. And with that, I'll go with Clerk Spencer. Anybody signed up this evening?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Claude Pagash.
Claude Pagach, 566 West Gladys. Last meeting the council held, our legal department gave some points on the agreement between the EPA and the city of Elmhurst. Unfortunately, left many things out. You people are loaded up with fines. Not just that 25,000. The things you talked about in here about a force main, a storage tank, test, and everything else in this town, you're not doing them because you want to. You're doing them because if you don't, you're going to pay a penalty. You're not putting flower gardens along Salt Creek because you want to. You're doing it because you have to. And that's a shame. Because people came to you when their houses flooded and said sewage was mixing in with the stormwater. And that was okay. About 3 years ago, I asked one of the elected officials about potential fines from the EPA. They told me, don't worry about it. Well, the last time I heard about that force main and that tank, because of the unforeseens, we were already up to 10 million. Not another word about it. So now this town is stuck. You don't do what the EPA says, you're going to pay a penalty. that means I'm going to pay the penalty. If you send in false statements, somebody's going to be prosecuted. Is that what it finally took to convince the legislative body of this city to finally act? There's an alderman here that's been fighting for concrete streets. I initially moved in up there. When I did, the streets had just been put in. Those people were assessed for those streets, besides paying their property taxes. And now they got 12 years to look forward to maybe have them patched. Is that the ultimate solution? That we let it deteriorate all these years? Because we have once. I once told this council, and they don't believe it, none of you, that there's wants and needs. And you guys keep on spending money on needs.
Mr. Pragash, I'd ask you to wrap it up.
And I'm just a little tired that you're giving away tax dollars because you sold me a tiff that those tax dollars were going to lower my taxes. You keep on giving them away, and I'll be paying those guys.
Tamara Brenner.
Tamara Brenner. I still live at the same place for the past 12 years. First thing, which I wasn't going to mention, but I am, because I can't get onto the internet on my iPad right now since the city's public Wi-Fi is non-functional at the moment. Luckily, I have some notes on my phone, too. The real first thing I wanted to mention tonight, or ask about, is if we could get an update on the situation with Lucky Motors, which clearly seems to have relocated its operations outside the city of Elmhurst and is currently operating out of Villa Park, as near as one can tell. Is the clawback provision in that contract functional? Or is it just for show? Where do things stand? Are we still investigating? Or are we looking into getting back our $145,000 sales tax sharing money that has already been distributed to Lucky Motors? The second thing has to do with the things going on in the zoning area. There's an interesting theory that's been postulated by an applicant in one of the two major zoning applications currently pending before the Zoning Commission, having to do with density. I raised concerns about the density of both the Hahn Street project and the Wilder Crossing project, and in response, the petitioner for Wilder Crossing suggests that maybe the comprehensive plan has a typographical error where it says that high-density multifamily residential is 20 dwelling units per acre. Perhaps it doesn't really mean that. Perhaps it meant to say that it's greater than 20 dwelling units per acre, or that it's up to 200 dwelling units per acre. The information I submitted to the city clerk discusses the reasons why I think it is basically unfounded and ridiculous to suggest that the comprehensive plan contains an error in this matter. That's detailed there. I think it's not a reasonable way of going forward to cover up the real dilemma that the city faces about how it's going to proceed forward with density and other related zoning matters by saying there's a typographical error in the materials. The city needs to have a conversation about how it plans to address this issue going forward. This should be done looking forward, not backwards. What I see happening is similar to what I believe happened with the electronic sign issue, wherein electronic signs were approved as conditional uses multiple times contrary to the zoning code over a period of years. And only when the attorney was asked for an opinion about whether those were okay, we got to a position where we realized the zoning code doesn't match what we've done in the past. We can't keep going forward like that in the past, and now we should change the zoning code going forward. We should change the zoning code and the comprehensive plan before we start making a whole bunch of exceptions to the code, allowing this project, that project, and the next project to go through as individual projects. The rules that we have are the rules we should follow. If we don't like the rules we have, let's change them. Let's do it the proper way. Have the public hearings from the beginning. Don't dictate to the Zoning Commission what the end outcome should be. Start at the beginning, public hearings from the Zoning Commission, and let's address these issues proactively instead of reactively. Let's see if that's all I have to say. I also want to say that I don't disagree that the 20 dwelling units per acre listed in the comprehensive plan is too low. The zoning code allows for 29 units per acre as it stands right now. We have projects that are higher than that in the city, and those projects are perfectly fine projects. The question is, what guidelines are we collectively, the community, going to be following, and can we please follow those guidelines instead of making exception after exception after exception? Thank you.
That's all who signed in for tonight.
Okay, that's it
Mr. Mayor.
for who signed in on our sign-up sheet. Is there anybody in the audience at this time who did not have an opportunity to sign in on the sign-in sheet that Clerk Spencer has and wishes to speak? If so, please raise your hand. Okay, is there anybody else? I see one, two. Okay, we'll start with the lady here in the middle in the striped shirt. And for the record, if you could approach the microphone and give us your name.
I'm Paula Wolf. I've been here before. Flooding is my problem, although I'm told I don't flood, and I'm saved by the tot lot. I don't see how that works, because the tot lot floods into the street, over the curbs, into my front lawn. I went to the Park District meeting last week, and they actually admitted that the reason the tot lot is there is because it's a flooded issue. A gentleman on Addison has lost vehicles because he backs up to the tot lot and his garage floods. Are we never allowed to go out of town because we're afraid our house is going to flood? Whether it's 6 feet deep or 3 inches, we lose things. It sounds like Golden Meadows will help for my property on Willow. That's great, but I hear nothing about what's going to help in our home on Larch. I went to the school board meeting, and I believe the schools need the money. The Park District, yeah, it needs the money. We're looking out for them. Who's looking out for us living in these homes? We don't want mold in our schools. What if we have it in our home and our children, our grandchildren, come home to a moldy home? What happens when we run out of money and we can no longer fix the problem? We have to live in it. I would just like somebody to say, hey, we're going to help you, instead of doing another study, paying more money, and seeing nothing happen. Now, we had flooding on Larch, 2 weeks in a row on Fridays, I think, or the first and the third Friday, and I called the city, and I told them what was happening. The first time, they sent somebody to tape off the street so people didn't try going through it. The second time I called, nobody bothered to come, and cars just pushed through it and flooded further onto the tot lot and onto the lawns and the sidewalks. I've come to these meetings more lately, but I can remember being here in 2010, thinking that Elmhurst is a great place. They want to take care of the people who are paying the taxes. And I see nothing being done, except you do studies. And you want the school board to be, function officially, get our kids the best everything. It's great, but what about us that have to live in the homes? And we're not young yuppies, some of us, so we can't keep making the fixes. And it would be wonderful to have a meeting where you actually said, we're going to help you. We're not just going to do another study, but look, we're going to come down your streets. We need new sewers. We don't just need retention areas. If you want to do a retention area near my house, dig up the tot lot. Make it a big hole. Save us. I'm not the only one that gets it. Thank you.
Mr. McGrath?
Mike McGrath, live on Clara. I'm sure these are going to be addressed when the agenda items come up, but on agenda item 7.8, if possible, if it could be addressed, how any possible lost revenue through the vehicle sticker program will be compensated. I'm just assuming that's a channel of revenue for the city, and if the city's going to investigate removing that, how they plan to recoup that revenue. Also, agenda item 7.10, while I'm sure it will be talked about again as well, The permeable pavement on Addison Avenue, if there's any way to expand that study across more streets, especially as the city is investigating some of the road issues throughout the city. So.
Okay, anyone else who did not have an opportunity? Yes.
Marilyn Arado, 912 Sailor. I haven't been coming to the meetings because I've had different family obligations. And so tonight, I thought I'd come and see what progress you've made. Thank you, Paula. Nothing has been done. And how many reports, how much money have you invested to find out what our problem is? Sailor Avenue has been disrupted all summer. And, you know, the best thing that happened this week before the rain, the sweeper came and took the leaves away so that our drains would not be plugged. People, get with it. Please, you're not doing anything for your citizens. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else who did not have an opportunity to sign up that wishes to address the council? Okay, seeing none, that will conclude our public forum portion of the meeting. On to announcements. Any announcements from the dais? Clerk Spencer.
I have a couple announcements regarding voter information. The general election will be November 4th, 2014, and as the local election official, I would like to announce the city clerk's office, in conjunction with the DuPage Election Commission, will provide early voting for the November 4th election to all registered voters in DuPage County. Elmhurst City Hall Council Chambers will be open for early voting starting Monday, October 20th, 2014, through Saturday, November 1st, 2014. Monday through Friday hours will be 8:30 to 7:30 p.m. and on Saturdays 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And due to a change in the law, a government issued ID is no longer required. You just need to be a registered voter of DuPage County. Also, regarding the April 7th consolidated election, those seeking to run for the 7 aldermanic seats, 1 per each of the 7 wards, may pick up a candidate packet from the administration office, 2nd floor, City Hall. Circulation of petitions started on Tuesday, September 23rd. Filing will take place the week of December 15th through December 22nd, 2014 for the April 7th election. And I just want to make a note, but we will be sure and post it. The council meeting, due to the early voting, the regularly scheduled council meeting for the October 20th will have to start at 8 o'clock instead of 7:30 due to early voting, but we'll post it accordingly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Alderman York.
Thank you, Your Honor. This coming Thursday, October 9th, at the Wilder Mansion, the Elmhurst Children's Assistance Foundation is holding their first ever Oktoberfest. It's the season for Oktoberfest. And the proceeds will go to help them do all the great work they do. More details can be found at ecaf4kids.org.
Alderman Healy, then I'll go to Alderman Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Alderman Levin and I will be hosting a 5th Ward Town Hall meeting on Wednesday, October 22nd. The meeting will start at 7:30 and will take place at the Knights of Columbus Hall, same place it's been every year. So Wednesday, October 22nd, 7:30, Town Hall meeting, and we will have invitations out, actual paper invitations out within the next week to 10 days or so. Thank you.
Alderman Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City of Elmhurst Commission on Youth will be hosting and facilitating a discussion panel, a heroin awareness forum on November 10th. This will take place at Superior Ambulance up on Lake Street, and there'll be representatives from DuPage County Coroner Office, Dr. Richard Jorgensen, and also from Linden Oaks and the Elmhurst Hospital will be participating in this panel. Again, that's November 10th at 7 p.m.
Okay, any other announcements? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. At this time, is there any item any member of the council wishes to have removed for further discussion, comment, or to vote no? Anything anybody wish to have removed from the consent agenda? Alderman Braham.
Item 7.17, 717.
7.17. Alderman Wagner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 7.11, 711 is going to be pulled back to committee.
All right, we'll pull it off for, yes, okay.
Thank you.
We'll pull it off and then we'll allow you to address that. Any other items to be pulled off? Seeing none, I will ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item 7.11 and item 7.17. Approval of the consent agenda minus 7.11 and 7.17. Motion by Alderman York, second by Alderman Deuter. Clerk Spencer.
York.
Aye.
Deuter. Aye. Dunn.
Aye.
Leader. Absent. Palumski.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Conquest.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Olener.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Gudenkauf.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, motion carries. Consent agenda is approved minus item 7.11 and 7.17. 7.11, Chairman Wagner, you're pulling that back to committee, yes? Okay, 7.17. This is a report out of DP&Z. Clerk Spencer, would you please read the recommendation?
Therefore, it is the recommendation of the Development, Planning, and Zoning Committee that the City Council authorize the Zoning and Planning Commission to hold a public hearing on text amendments to the zoning ordinance regarding medical cannabis cultivation centers as conditional uses in the I-1 Restricted Industrial District and adding medical marijuana dispensing facilities as conditional uses in the I-1 Restricted Industrial District and the C3 General Commercial District. Signed by Scott M. Levin, Chairman, Danny Palumski, Vice Chairman, and Mark A. Mulliner.
All right, to bring this to the floor, I'll ask for a motion to approve the report and recommendation as read. Motion by Alderman Levin, second by Alderman Palumski. Alderman Levin, this is your report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this ordinance is to look to be in conformance with a new state law that allows for medical marijuana usage. Essentially, we need to provide some zoning requirement that would allow it to be placed in some location in the city. It can't be completely prohibited. There is a provision in the state ordinance that provides that a dispensary or cultivation can't be within 1,000 feet of a school, daycare, et cetera. And so in the committee, we drew some circles around the many institutions that would require 1,000-foot setbacks all the way around, and as a result, there aren't all that many places where it might be possible to locate a dispensary or a cultivation center. There are 60 dispensaries that may be permitted in the state, and 22 dispensaries, cultivation centers, one in each state police district. We felt that with those constraints, trying to keep them, I think there was a feeling to keep them away from the residential areas, so we came up with our recommendation, and there are not that many locations that would be applicable. That's sort of the overview, and take it from there.
Alderman Braham, you pulled this. You have a question.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I want to first thank the committee. I know that this topic was revisited over and over again and discussed in committee many a time, so I thank you for your due diligence on this topic. The only questions I really have would be, the first being, why does the committee feel that C3 should be considered for the medical dispensaries instead of just I-1 like the cultivation centers? To my understanding, most communities, not all, but a lot of communities have pretty much relegated it, both the cultivation as well as the dispensaries, to the industrial area. So I would like to understand the rationale behind that. And then the other thing, which I don't see in the report, and I did forward some of this information on to our city manager, I believe, was some communities are actually considering working into their ordinance, what do I call, a share of profits, if you would, for any cultivation centers and/or dispensaries. Did the committee discuss that, go along those lines about sharing of profits due to the overhead of what some of these centers are at least believed to come with, the security aspect, mainly the safety aspect? So was that discussed as well? And if so, what was the end result or discussion out of that?
Alderman Bram, I may have missed the first part of your statement. I got the sharing of the revenue, which I'm not encouraging. But what was your first question? Could you summarize your first question?
The first question was essentially in one sentence, why C3?
Okay. Alderman Levin, you care to add to the discussion as to why C3 was or was not added, and whether or not discussion of sharing, which I'm not sure falls under zoning, was part of your conversation?
Well, it's a new topic for everyone, so looking to other municipalities isn't always helpful, because we think we have the best and brightest council, so we could be on the lead on this. But that being said, other municipalities such as Glen Ellen, Naperville, and others, Downers Grove, do allow, other than in a, I'm not sure about Downers Grove, but those other two are looking at, in Oak Brook, have a business district or a commercial district possibility. It's a sort of a philosophical question. One of the things we talked about at committee was the fact that if you have a prescription for Vicodin, which is in the paper today because of all of its addictive problems, et cetera, and I happen to know someone who has an illness that qualifies for medical marijuana. We had a discussion. He's saying, well, if I want to take Vicodin, which isn't preferred, I can go down to Walgreens right downtown. If I get medical marijuana, why do I have to drive up to the industrial park like I'm some sort of drug addict or criminal? There was a lot of discussion on the committee saying, shouldn't the pharmacists be dispensing this if it is medical marijuana? And those who suggest that may be right, but that's not what the state law is. So is there, and I think there was a feeling that the state regulation is pretty restrictive right now with all the 1,000-foot circles. What's the harm we're protecting against? The requirements here are not to go to the level of, say, California's statute, which is you can go in and say, I've got headaches, my appetite is lost, I need some marijuana to help. These are very specific, serious illnesses. The applicant has to be fingerprinted. You're paying a premium for the marijuana that's dispensed as medical marijuana. It has to be grown in the state. So it's certainly not a problem where our children are going to be going to a dispensary to sign up for that. So trying to balance it out, doing the best we can. The C3 is not located near any residential, so we felt that was an appropriate use. In terms of there is an aspect we talked about. I think a lot of the municipalities some are encouraging growers or dispensaries to come because it is a revenue source. Not only is there sales tax, but you can also negotiate a tax that would bring in revenue to the city. We didn't do that. I know I personally was contacted by some people, and I know others in the city have, including Than. We didn't go down that road. We didn't think it was what our committee was all about. All the applications that were due for the initial 60 and 22 are turned in. I don't believe any were turned in for Elmhurst. So it's not going to have any real effect right now. It's still got to go to the Zoning and Planning Commission for public hearings, for their recommendation, or to see if they follow our recommendation, at which time we'll come back to the council.
Was revenue sharing discussed, Alderman Levin?
Only of the fact at the very end that it was happening. There was some literature about towns and the incentives, but we didn't, and we talked about sales tax revenues as well.
Okay. Alderman Bram?
Thank you. Just to follow up, my question was more not specifically, I guess, how I summarized it in one sentence of why C3, but why C3 versus some of the other potentially applicable zoning district. I know the committee discussed the HCC campus. Could that have been an option? It's irrelevant to me, at least, if the HCC, in this case Elmhurst Hospital, would want it or ever do it, at least at this point, but wouldn't that be an area that would be far away, or as far as you possibly could be, I guess, within the city of Elmhurst limits, an area that would be far away from residential? You know, I was looking, I don't recall, I don't have the map in front of me, but some of the other possible zoning districts as well. Some of the parts of C3 are butted up against residential, and I know that wouldn't be applicable due to the state law. But I don't know if it's fair to say that C3 is not near residential. I appreciate that at least the financial aspect was at least brought up. I'm not saying that I'm an advocate for it or not. I really didn't dive into it, but I did see that other communities were considering it, so I thought that Elmhurst should also, you know, at least ponder and think through that as well.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll ask Clerk Spencer to please call the roll.
Levin.
Aye.
Palumski. Aye. Graham.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Conquist.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Deuter.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader absent. 12 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, motion passes. Agenda item 7.17 is approved. That concludes all items pulled off consent agenda. On to reports and recommendations from appointed elected officials. 8.1, Mayor Morley. Two quick announcements. One is a repeat. There will be a citywide stormwater meeting held here at City Hall on October 15th. This is really going to try to cover all topics of discussion around stormwater that we've been working on for about the last 4 or 5 years, including study areas from Christopher Burke, engineering reports, policy changes, et cetera. We'll be issuing press releases, continue to issue press releases, providing more and more information as we get closer to that date. So that's October 15th, 7 o'clock here at City Hall. The other is just an update on the aldermanic search to replace Alderman Hipskin. We received 9 applicants as of last Friday. I have interviewed all 9 applicants, and we'll be following up. I do have some follow-up questions for some of the applicants, and we'll be doing so over the next week and a half. It's my hope that I will come to the council with a recommendation by the 20th, but I'm not sure of some of the other questions and follow-ups I have, whether or not my calendar works with the calendar or schedules of some of the folks I need to follow up with. So if it's not the 20th, it will be the first meeting in November, but that's the update on the aldermanic candidates. City Manager Robowski.
Thank you. I have 3 items tonight. First off is the fiscal year 2015 budget. Before you tonight is the budget, paper copy. That will be put on the city website tomorrow for all to view. 2 sections that I want to point out, 2 sections of the budget document, the budget and financial policies and procedures, and the supplemental information will be posted as soon as they're completed, and then, of course, distributed to the council at the October 14th committee meetings. We are scheduling the first review of this as a committee of the whole meeting on October 20th after the regular city council meeting, as we've done in the past. And I will reserve my comments, other than to say it's a balanced budget that we're happy to submit to the council. And also to note that recently the Finance Department was recognized for the GFOA Budget Award. And so thank you to Marilyn and Tom for that, which of course tells us that this is an easy-to-read document. Granted, it's a little thick, but easy to read, and we'll look forward to the 20th to fully explain that. Secondly, I was going to update the City Council on the Lucky Motors situation that was brought up earlier today. What I would say is that we're still investigating what's going on with Lucky Motors. We do have a sales tax sharing agreement with them, and it does appear that Lucky Motors has closed their Elmhurst facility. Again, we're still investigating that. We are close to bringing that to a conclusion, and I've asked the city attorney to review our options for that, and he and I will be evaluating those options this week and making the determination on how we approach that. The last item that I have, and I'm going to ask the council for some indulgence here. I've asked Chief Ruth to prepare some comments on the recent rash of home burglaries that we've had. If you were able to see it, NBC News was out last week talking about it and basically reminding people to be vigilant and to lock doors and turn on alarms when they can. And Mr. Mayor, if the council will allow, I'd like to ask.
And I assume we have consent from the council. I'll have the chief address us. So indicated. Chief, the floor is yours.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. I just want to reiterate what the manager has indicated, that we've experienced a rash of burglaries on the south and east part of town, and it's consistent with several of the surrounding communities that have also experienced the same phenomenon. I'd just like to say that this issue is a very high priority for the police department, and we've committed technical and investigative resources to address this trend. We've reassigned personnel. Additional police patrols continue throughout the city. We've reassigned some of our detectives, and we've placed additional officers in plainclothes and unmarked cars to assist us for additional patrols during these problem-identified times. And the times are going to be from 9 a.m. till about 4 p.m. The police department encourages all of our residents to be alert for suspicious people, for suspicious activity in the cars, and to immediately report any unusual situations to 911. When residents keep a watchful eye for their neighbors, they serve as a force multiplier for us to help prevent crime in their neighborhood. Thank you.
Any questions for the chief while we got him? No and yes. Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you. Chief, would you take this opportunity to remind residents about the law regarding solicitors and what they can and cannot do?
Well, the ordinance for solicitors, if there's a sign, number one, they have to be registered with the city, but there are some exemptions to that, and that's going to be the religious, the freedom of speech, the political distribution of information. The city and the police department have stickers available which say no solicitors or solicitors not invited, and that places the solicitors that they're not to go to that particular house. But again, it's exempted if it's religious or political.
May I have a follow-up?
Yes.
What, if a solicitor is registered with the city, what do they have to have? What does it look like? They have to have some kind of an identification.
Yeah, there's some credentialing that occurs on a lanyard or a sticker that they're supposed to wear predominantly, and they're not to be unruly or harass or overly aggressive. And we would urge the residents, and if they encounter a solicitor that is a little overly aggressive or does not meet the criteria, is to call 911, and we can have an officer who's assigned to that particular area stop and investigate. And if they're properly licensed and they're acting in a fashion that they are, maybe just a simple reminder that we've received a complaint that they are a little overly aggressive, and places them back.
Thank you.
Alderman Bram.
And this is not a question for the chief, just to follow up to Alderman Gutenkopf's question on regards to solicitors. I know that when they come to my door, I ask the question in regards to the displayed City of Elmhurst badge, if you would. And a lot of times I hear and I will deem it as an excuse that, oh, my manager has it or my coworker has it on the next block. Our City of Elmhurst law or ordinance states that every solicitor needs to have a City of Elmhurst provided badge at all times. So not my manager down the block, not my buddy, or I left it in the car, it's in my pocket. It has to be displayed at all times. And I personally have encouraged my neighbors that if that is not the case, and if they're bothering you or harassing you, then obviously call 911, because they're not registered with the city. And the point of that is to make sure the city knows who's walking around, going door to door, knocking on everybody's doors. So, thank you.
All right, any other comments or questions for the chief? Okay, do you have a question or just an addition? All right, thanks, chief. And City Manager Grabowski has a follow-up.
Yes, thank you. So I've been talking with Chief Ruth regarding this and asked him to look into the viability of any technology that could possibly help the police department in these type of situations. One option that we've discussed is license plate reading technology or equipment. This is something that's used in some of the surrounding communities to Elmhurst, whether it's mounted on the police vehicle or stationary on a pole. So I've asked him to gather information on this and present it and any possibilities at a future Public Affairs and Safety Committee meeting for evaluation as to whether or not it's appropriate for Elmhurst. So that'll be coming to a future meeting and then to the City Council.
Okay. Any other reports or recommendations? Alderman Bram.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to just make a request to get an update on two what I deem to be important issues. One, the Hahn Street development. It seems to have gone a little bit stagnant, so if we can get an understanding on where the redevelopment agreement is and where that development overall is standing. And then the other, offline conversations with the city manager about a presentation on overall Elmhurst economic development. My understanding is the next council meeting that will also be presented at that time for the city council and Elmhurst as a whole. But if I can get an update on the Hahn Street development and where we are with that. Thank you.
Thank you. We're still negotiating the RDA for Hahn Street. It's taking longer than we had anticipated, but there are versions going back and forth between the city and the developer. I believe right now, and the city attorney can help me with this, the ball is in their court, so to speak.
It is. They're to get back to us.
Is there anything that you can speak to tonight in regards to what is the holdup from coming to a agreement in the RDA, that at least the council could start moving in a direction on this?
Assistant Manager Kopp has been negotiating that along with other attorneys from Mr. Storino's office, so I don't have any details tonight. I don't know that there's any one particular sticking point, but we're narrowing those issues down, and if there are any sticking points, certainly we'll bring them back to the council.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other business? Moving on. Any other business? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Alderman York, second by Alderman Dunn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.